What's up, guys? Laura Whitmore with Strategic Test Prep. I'm a test prep instructor with over 15 years experience. I scored a 1550 and a 1540 on my most recent official SATs, and I'm here today to talk to you about the reading section. I heard from you guys that took the November test this past Saturday that the reading was the hardest section yet again. It's got to be so frustrating when you're trying to get a certain SAT score and the reading is just that brick wall that you just can't scale and you just can't get where you want to be. So in this video, I want to talk to you about a student I actually worked with last year who managed to get a perfect score in the reading. And I'm going to tell you exactly what she did. So stick around and you'll get some good tips that you can implement to get where you want to be on the reading section. Okay, so the student that came to me last year was definitely lopsided in her score. She was close to perfect in the math, and she was lower in the reading and the writing. Now, the first thing I will say about this student is she really was willing to do whatever it takes to get a perfect score. And so that intrinsic motivation really pushed her through. So if you don't have a good reason for why you want to get a high reading score, find one. But my guess is if you're watching this video right now, you are motivated to succeed, so you have that drive that she had, which is awesome. So because she was so willing to do whatever it took, she actually did 3 reading practices each week. Now, this was over the summertime. We worked together for about 2 months. And so she had a lot more free time because she wasn't in school. So if you're in school right now, that might be tougher to do, but maybe you could do 2 practices a week. And that way you can learn from your first practice to be able to make some changes for your second practice, which is exactly what she did. She learned from each practice that she did and made changes so that she could improve on her next practice. Now, in between each practice, she spent a day reflecting on the practice that she had done, which is super important. You have to reflect on the practices. What does that entail? Well, she combed through each question she missed and tried to re-answer it. And then after that, she rechecked her answers, and if she was still wrong, she tried to figure out why the right answer was right. This was super important for her to do this on her own before she came back to me, because when she came back to me, she had a list of specific questions that she wanted to go over, and that's really important. You're going to want to think through the questions yourself and try to notice patterns before you have someone else swoop in to save you and explain why an answer is right and why an answer is wrong. So overall, between her doing the practices and then doing the reflections, she spent roughly 5 hours a week committed solely to the SAT reading section. Now, she also timed each practice. This is crucial. You have to time your practices. This allowed her to be able to see where she was tight on time, if she was tight on time, if she needed to make changes to save time. And so she knew exactly where she was at with time so that when she went into the test, there were no surprises. Now, timing and practices go hand in hand. Obviously, the more practices you do, naturally you're going to get better with time. So when she started working with me, she had maybe 30 seconds to spare at the end of the section, and a couple of times she had run out. And then by the time we were done working together, because she had done so many practices, she had about 5 to 7 minutes extra at the end. And one big thing with her was that she was willing to experiment. So when she was tight on time, I would make suggestions to her and she would try different things. So she would try the answer seeking strategy, and she would try it on different types of passages. She would try starting with the words and context questions and then saving the main idea questions for last. She would skip the science because she wasn't very good with the science. So every single practice she did, she made one change. It's just like running a science experiment. You don't want to make too many changes at once. You need to have one variable and a bunch of controls. So she would change one variable on each practice until she found what worked best for her. Now, this student also went into this whole test prep process with a super open mind. She was willing to adapt her thinking and change. Sometimes when I have students come to me, if they get an answer wrong, they want to fight me tooth and nail on it, or fight College Board really, and try to explain why their answer is right and why College Board is wrong, but that's not going to get you anywhere. So this student recognized that, and when I told her she needed to think like the test designer, she was willing to do that. So when she went through and reflected on her practices, Her biggest goal was to figure out why the right answers were right so that she could start to put her brain inside the heads of the test designers and think like they do. She also was open-minded enough to make changes and take all the suggestions that I gave her. Sometimes, again, when I work with a student, they'll be hesitant to try something new. I might suggest that they do the double questions backwards and they really feel weird about doing that, or I'll tell them to mark up the passage and they'll think, oh, this takes too much time. I don't want to do that. And then they'll come back to me and I'll look at their test and nothing will be marked. And it's kind of like, well, what's the point? You know, if nothing changes, nothing changes. So she was so willing to try different things and new approaches and methods because she knew otherwise she was going to get the same exact score again. Now, another thing to her credit, she had a one-on-one SAT coach, which is an important part of the process because you need someone sometimes who can point things out to you when you can't see the light. So she would come to me with a whole list of questions that she needed to go over because when she did her reflection, she still couldn't see it. She couldn't see why the right answer was right sometimes. So she had me as an expert be able to walk her through, this is the textual evidence that matches this answer. On this one, you were making an inference and trying to connect the dots instead of just picking the literal translation. So I was able to kind of help her see some things and get better that she wouldn't have been able to see on her own, which is kind of like anything in life. You know, if you're an athlete, you're not going to get better without a coach, or if you're a dancer, or if you are majoring in biochem, you're not going to get better without the knowledge of a professor, someone that is more of an expert than you. Now, the thing is, though, not everybody has access or resources to be able to do one-on-one SAT prep. So what I've decided to do is I am going to run an SAT reading cram session the Saturday before the December test. It'll be roughly 2 hours, and I'm going to help you guys by going over a couple different reading passages with a couple different methodologies you can use, and we can work together and I can answer your questions in real time so that you'll feel way more confident and ready going into the test. So I think it'll be good if we work through a couple of the passages together so that you can actually ask me questions and get my feedback. If you can share your thinking with me, then I can tell you if you're on the right track or not. So I'm gonna just keep it to a small group. Sign up sooner than later if you wanna get in, I wouldn't wait. For this week, just this week, I'm gonna offer an early sign up promotion. So if you put in the promo code CRAM, you're gonna get $15 off. And yeah, I think it'll be awesome. I think that it'll help you guys feel more ready. And this December test is going to be the last test for you international people before it switches to the digital format. So this is your one last chance to get that reading score up before it's too late. Now, the student that I was telling you guys about that did all this work, you know, that was open-minded, that worked hard and did a ton of practices each week, that came to me and shared with me her thinking and shared where she was at with time and was willing to experiment and try different things. She went into the test after a couple months and she ended up just getting one question wrong on the reading section, but it ended up equating to a 40 on the conversion chart, so she scored perfect. I'm super proud of her. But yeah, I mean, just know that it can be done. You can go up. You just have to work really hard. So I hope you follow some of the suggestions that I shared with you today. And I hope to see you in a few weeks at the cram session. See you guys again soon.